everybody. Welcome to Edo 531 or the Facilitating Learner Centered Teaching. I am Teacher Roselle and I will discuss to you the contents presented in your respective modules. Now, let's begin. The first topic that we are going to tackle is about the learning principles associated to the cognitive, metacognitive, motivational, and affective factors. So, what are these concepts all about? Now, let's begin. Before that, let's get to know our outcomes or objectives for this lesson. At the end of the session, you are expected to explain the cognitive, metacognitive, motivational, and affective factors of the teaching and learning processes. And we have here, you are also expected to cite classroom situations that manifest applications of these principles. So basically, this lesson focuses on LCPs. So, what are LCPs all about? The LCP, as what you know, stands for Learner Psychological Principles. Again, Learner Centered Psychological Principles. LCP principles stand for Learner Centered Psychological Principles. So, what are LCPs all about? Way back in 1990s, the American Psychological Association, or APA, created a task force on the psychology in education. So, what's the reason behind this group? This group was formed, or the task force was formed to explain further the events in the teaching and learning process. They wanted to know more about the learners. They wanted to know more about the teaching and learning process. They wanted to know more the nature of our learners and how learners learn and how teachers can give better learning experiences to our learners. So that is the major reason why a task force was created way back in 1990s. Then, before in the 1990s, the product of these task force are initially 12 learner fundamental principles, which are about the learners and the learning process. And also, this principle talks about the perspective on factors which influence learning for all learners. So, ano nga ba yung mga principle na yon? Those principle talks about again learners. They talked about the learning process. They talk about the teaching and learning process. So initially there were 4 and there were 12 rather. However, in 1997 it became 14. So we are now enjoying today, even recently, we have the 14 learner centered psychological principles. So, what is the end goal of this task force? Again, as what I've said, the reason behind the creation of that group is the improvement of the existing school policies so that learning becomes more meaningful to all kinds of learners. Regardless of age, regardless of levels, regardless of basically the differences of the learners are taken into consideration. The aim of these 14 learner centered psychological principle is to provide quality and better learning experiences to our students. Because of LCP, learner centeredness or learner centered teaching and learning process is also given a highlight. So, how do we say that learning is learner centered? From the word itself, learner. When we say learner, these are students. If yung bagay or if yung teaching and learning process is learner-centered, the focus is on the student. Yung gumagawa is majority students. Hindi si teacher yung nagbibigay lahat ng informasyon, but si learner, he or she discovers the learning and meaning on his or her own. The teachers give scaffolding or guidance to the student, not spoon feeding the student. So again, this is focusing on the individual learners. We we give highlight to the experiences, the perspective, the background of our students, the talents, the interests, capacities, and even needs of our students. Again, bottom line, it is not about the teacher, it is about our students. When we say again learner centered, it also gives focus on the learning. What is the best available knowledge about learning and how it occurs, and about teaching practices that are most effective in promoting the highest level of motivation, learning, achievement for all learners. Again, when we provide learner centered approach, or when we use learner centered approach in teaching, we give the best learning experiences to our students. We can provide the best learning activity and practices. It's because we know our students. Nagiging maganda yung experiences ng student sa loob ng classroom kasi ikaw mismo bilang guro, alam mo kung ano yung kinakailangan na i-develop ng mga mag-aaral mo. So again, this informs and drives educational decision making. It's because you take consideration about the opinions of your students. You give importance to your learners. Hindi lang sila basta-basta. Di sila puppet na sumusunod lang sa teachers. But the students here are making decisions on their own. And again, the principle applies not only to one learner, not only to a specific group, but among all learners. Hence, we have here the diversity of learners. The LCP principles cater the diversity or differences of the students. Silent reader, slow learner rather, fast learner, active learner, shy learner. The LCP principle covers these types of learners. Because again, in summary, learner centered include learners in decisions about and what they learn, and that and how that learning is assessed. Again, you put into consideration kung ano yung gusto ni learner. You also value the unique perspectives or opinions of your students. You hear them out. Pinapakinggan mo kung ano yung opinion nila. You also value and respect and accommodate individual differences. You also consider their interests, their backgrounds, and experiences. And lastly, you treat your learners as co creators and partners in the teaching and learning process. Lagi mong tandaan, ang learning process ay hindi about sa'yo. It is not about the teacher, it is about the students. Because students are considered as customers of the teaching and learning process. Teachers are facilitators. Teachers are givers of scaffolds, and or guidance to our students. Next one we have here, the LCP principles, or the learner centered psychological principles, are categorized into four domains. What are these domains? We have here the cognitive and metacognitive domain, motivational and affective domain, the developmental and social domain, and lastly, we have here individual difference domain. For this lesson, we will focus first on the cognitive and metacognitive factors. This is the first domain. When we talk about the cognitive and metacognitive factors, when you say cognitive, it refers to the mental processes that learners undergo as they process information. From the word itself, cognitive, it talks about the mind. Paano pinaprocess ng utak mo yung mga natututunan mo? That is under metacognitive. Under cognitive rather. Again, about thinking, kung ano yung mga natutunan mo, kung paano mo ini-store, or how are you going to store those informations that you have learned, and how will you be able to retrieve those information, how will you be able to learn those informations and remember those information, that is under the cognitive factor. Again, cognitive, it has something to do with your mind. Paano mo natutunan yung mga bagay-bagay. Next one we have here, when we say metacognitive, one of the key word or key phrase that would sum up metacognitive is thinking about thinking. So, thinking about thinking or metacognitive factors talks about or concerns on the way learners think about their thinking. So, this is when you are thinking about how to think or how to learn, that is metacognitive. You are thinking how to learn something. Okay. Next one we have here, first. Let's tackle first the principles under the first domain, which is cognitive and metacognitive factor. First one we have here, the nature of the learning process. So ano nga ba si nature of the learning process? According to LCP, the learning of complicated subject matter is most effective when it is an intentional process of constructing meaning from information and experience. So anong sabi ni LCP? Sabi niya, even if the subject or the topic is difficult, but if you are really motivated, or if you really intend, if you really want to learn that one, the process is easier. You will be able to learn it. For example, if gusto mong matutong gumawa on how to make a lesson plan, if you wanted to learn how to make a lesson plan, and the desire is really intentional, gusto mo talagang matutunan yan kasi gusto mo. You have a goal. That is the time that you will learn how to do it. Mas naiintindihan mong gawin ang bagay-bagay or mas madali mong naiintindihang gawin ang mga bagay-bagay kung gugustuhin mo talagang matutunan yan. For example, another, you get to uh, if you have a goal, eventually you will achieve something. If you wanted to finish your studies because you wanted to finish it, you have it's your intention to finish it. At the end of the day, you will eventually finish your studies. Next, so here in this principle, teachers play significant role in guiding their learners to become active, goal-directed, and self-regulating, and to assume personal responsibility of the learning process. Kasi nga, si learner is already motivated, so si teacher dapat gina-guide niya si learner. Okay? So, you are giving or directing the student para yung intention niya ay di mawala, or yung intention niya ay positive yung patutunguhan. When planning their lesson topic and topics, teachers must need to consider how they can bring reality in the classroom. You must give students the actual experiences. Hindi yung basta hindi yung parang always expectation. Very perfectionist. But teachers, make sure yung mga activity mo ay nakakasigurado ka na magagamit ni student yun even he or she is outside the classroom. There must be real-based application. For example, in mathematics, di lang basta-basta solve in the board, but give the opportunity for the students to find the connection between the real life, kung ano yung nangyayari sa reality, and to their lesson. Next one we have here, learning activities and opportunities provided by the teachers are very important because students can integrate their knowledge and experiences. And For the nature of learning process, learners must have a clear and concrete understanding of the knowledge and concepts presented so that they would also know in what particular should they apply them. Dapat klaro sa kanila kung ano yung kahalagahan ng natutunan nila inside the classroom. So, learning through experience is most effective according to the nature of the learning. And if it is intentional, there is an effective giving of feedback. And because of that one, students are motivated more to enhance and become aware of the learning process. So again, nature of the learning process, dapat intentional. Dapat gusto mo talaga. Dapat may goal si student na matutunan yan para mas madali niyang matutunan ang bagay-bagay. Goals of the learning process. So, it's connected, di ba? Kung gusto mo, magagawa mo siya. That's number one, nature of the learning process. Next one, goals of the learning process. According to the second LCP, the successful learner over time, with the support and instructional guidance, can create meaningful, coherent representations of knowledge. So, anong ibig sabihin yan? Learners need to be goal directed and set their goals not dictated by others to ensure their willingness to achieve them. So, see LCP number 2, it reminds us that learners must set their goals. Okay? Ano nga bang ibig sabihin yan? Dapat klaro sa kanila yung anong gusto nilang matutunan. They should have a goal for themselves and not affected by other people. Kasi nga, if your goal is really something that you set for yourself, mas committed ka. Mas willing kang ma-achieve yun. Kasi nga, gusto mo yun eh. That's your personal goal. Pero if your goal is affected by other factors, example, goal yan ng parents mo. You enrolled in education kasi gusto ng parents mo maging teacher ka. Though there is a goal, but since the goal is not coming from you, it's not your own goal, it's not your own desire, the tendency is that mas madali kang mapapagod. Mas madali kang matempt kasi it's not yours. And the role of the teacher here is to guide the learners in terms of determining their personal goals. Teachers, let us help our learners know what is it that they really want to do? What is it that they really want to achieve? Because there is meaningful learning. Mas nagiging makabuluhan yung mga natututunan ni student or yung teaching and learning experience is more meaningful if the students are interested in that lesson. And if the students can connect their needs and interests in the lesson. So, third one, ano yung third principle? Construction of knowledge. When we say construction, it is when they are making. To construct is to make. So, according to LCP number 3, successful learner can link new information with existing knowledge in meaningful ways. Paano nga ba yan? Knowledge widens and deepens as students continue to build links, new information and experiences and their existing knowledge base. So paano nga ba na-achieve si construction of knowledge? You are trying to connect what you have learned in the past with the present. Ang tawag doon sa mga knowledge na alam mo in the past are what we call prior knowledge. Prior knowledge or your background knowledge. And whatever you've learned in the present, these are the present knowledge or present information. Again, your past knowledge or background about something, that's your prior knowledge. So if you will connect your prior knowledge to the present knowledge, it would be easier for you to make or understand something. So, for instance, it would be more effective if the teacher connects the learning experiences or students' existing knowledge to new information. So, dito lang, magagamit mo si past. So, if in the relationship, it's not ideal nababalikan mo si past. Dito, sa principle na to, we are encouraged to connect your past and your present. So, there is a may utilizing your past experiences and your present experiences. So, next, integration of the prior experiences or prior knowledge to the new concept is a way of making connections between what is new and what is already known. Para may continuity, para di yun di lang basta-basta nalilimutan yung mga natututunan sa past. For example, if you in the past you have learned about how to add numbers. So dapat si adding of numbers can also be used in the next math lessons para mas makabuluhan yung mga natutunan niya. Di yung basta-basta na mo lang kakalimutan. Next, we have here the very heart of constructivism supports that new knowledge is created from old knowledge. So, yung mga natutunan, kung ano ka, just like the famous saying goes, your past somehow shape who you are today. You will not achieve what you know today if you haven't read or made use of your learnings in the past. So wag mo yung kalimutan. And teachers should initiate more opportunities for learners to share ideas, experiences, observations, and reading as need arises. So students must also share what they know because nobody is an island. And you can get to know the prior knowledge of your students or maaari mong malaman kung ano yung mga dati nang alam ng yung mga mag-aaral or kung ano yung alam ng yung mag-aaral through group activities, brainstorming, random check-up quiz. So, through those activities, you will somehow know what is their prior knowledge about that topic. Strategic thinking. The successful learner can create and use repertoire of thinking and reasoning strategies to achieve complex and learning goals. So from the word itself, strategic or strategy. According to LCP, para daw mas madali mong matutunan ang mga bagay-bagay, dapat marunong kang mag-strategize. Dapat marunong kang gumamit ng iyong reasoning skill, your problem solving and concept learning skills. Dapat you go outside the box. If this is the situation, dapat you should have the initiative to find ways on how to solve it. So that's strategic thinking. You should find opportunities to solve it. Strategic thinking. Okay, thinking is a person's ability to use knowledge in different ways to solve problems. If there is a problem, do not settle to one solution. Find different solutions in order to solve that so that you will be able to make sound decisions and judgment. And we have here strategic thinkers. When we say strategic thinkers, these are people or students who don't easily give up. Kasi nasanay na sila eh. If this solution will not work, so again, they will find another strategy. They will find another solution to solve the problem. And they will become more challenged kasi mas nagagamit yung utak nila eh. Mas nagagamit nila kung ano yung how to think. Paano nga ba to isosolve? There's a problem. So there must be a solution. And they are not afraid to commit mistake. Kasi, try and try until you will get the idea. So that's the concept of strategic thinking. Until you will get the correct answer, until you are satisfied with your answer, you can try a lot of stuff. You can try a lot of strategy. And here, teachers must give opportunities to students so that they get to solve an experiment, and teachers must also motivate students. Di yung basta-basta mo na lang papapagalitan yung mag-aaral mo kasi di niya nakuha yung answer or mali yung answer niya. But it must be the other way around. Encourage your students to try and try. Then we have here thinking about thinking. Successful learners can reflect on how they think and learn, set reasonable learning experiences and performance goals, select potentially appropriate learning strategies, methods, and monitor their progress towards learning. Again, when we say thinking about thinking, that is metacognition. Metacognition. Thinking about thinking. Iniisip mo kung paano mag-isip. Iniisip mo kung paano matuto. For example, if you are thinking how to better learn the principles of teaching, you are doing thinking about thinking. You are into metacognition. If you are thinking about the best way to solve the problem, you are using your metacognition. That is thinking about thinking. Iniisip mo kung paano mag-isip. And in thinking and think about thinking or in metacognition, our challenge as teachers is to develop among our students the HOTS. Ano ang HOTS? HOTS stand for Higher Order Thinking Skills. Paano mo masasabi na ang isang bagay ay higher order thinking skill? If students get to make something, if you require your students to make something, to analyze, to interpret, and to dig deeper, that is higher order thinking. But if you will only require students to memorize, that is lower order. Kasi they only memorize. But if they are making something, mas napapagana yung reasoning skill nila. Mas na-challenge sila. And that makes higher order thinking skill. Okay? So example, if your student, that the topic is lesson planning. If your teacher will only ask you, oh, what are the elements of lesson plan? That is lower order kasi recall lang. Pero if si teacher ipapagawa kayo ng lesson plans in application of the lesson. That is higher order thinking. Next. So thinking about thinking also involves discovery, problem solving, and so on. And assessment tools should be authentic. Ano yung authentic? It means real life situation. Or yung baga pa, may nagagawa yung mga student, higher order yun. Di lang quiz, always pen and paper. Those type of tests are not authentic. Okay? Only using your pens or ball pens, it will not make the assessment authentic. But if your teacher will allow you to make something, you go outside, you do experiment. You go outside and observe the clouds and identify whether it is cumulus or nimbus or whatever type of cloud is that. That is authentic. Kasi nagagamit nila sa real setup. If you are a future teacher, and then your subject is about lesson planning, tapos si teacher, pinagawa kayo ng lesson plan at may teaching demo, that is, again, authentic. Next one, we have your context of learning. It is said here in the sixth principle, learning is influenced by environmental factors, including culture, technology, and educational practices. So, si learning also is influenced by the situation. So, for instance, if nasa bulubundukin yung paaralan, of course, you cannot expect that technology will really be 100% functional in that area kasi walang signal. So, there is also a factor about the technology or yung situation ng learning. So, anong gagawin natin? First, learning does not only takes place inside the classroom. Kahit saan ka magpunta, anywhere, anytime, learning can take place. For example, pumunta ka sa market, may na-realize ka. That is already learning. Did you go to a certain classroom? No. Is there a teacher there for a licensed professional teacher? No. Anybody. can teach you something. Anybody can teach you a lesson. Experiences would also teach you a lesson. That's why learning is not only limited inside the classroom. Okay? Examples are given in the classroom should be a reflection of their actual experiences. Dapat yung mga na-experience ng mga students in everyday context para makonect nila yon. Digital tools and instructional practices must be carefully selected to facilitate motivating and stimulating and encouraging learning environment geared on effective acquisition of knowledge. So, when you use technology, make sure na makakatulong talaga yun sa mga students. Di yung mas di sila gaganahang mag-aral and so on. Then, we have here, oh, that's it. That's it for the cognitive and metacognitive factors. Again, to recap, when we say cognitive and metacognitive factors, cognitive is how you think. Ano yung natutunan mo, how your brain process your thinking. And when we say metacognitive, it is thinking about thinking. You are thinking about the teaching and learning process or paano mo matutunan ang mga bagay-bagay. Under this domain, we have here the first, nature of the learning process. Dapat it is really intentional. Gugustuhin mo talagang matuto. Kasi mas natututo ka if it is intentional. Next, we have here goals of the learning process. Dapat may goal ka para mas directed ka, para mas committed ka. Kasi you have a timeline, you have a goal. Third, construction of knowledge. It means that what you have learned in the past must be used or connected to what you are learning in the present. Your prior knowledge must be used for effectively learning of the present knowledge. Then we have here strategic thinking. Do not settle for less. Go beyond the box. Think of many ways for you to learn something. Do not easily give up. If you haven't found the answer, if you have not found the answer in one try again. Try and try until you will get it. Fifth one we have here, thinking about thinking. Always find ways on how to learn something. Reflect on how to learn. Think about how to think. Metacognition. The sixth one under this domain is context of learning. Try to find or try to make use of the situation. Try to identify the background. Ano nga ba yung meron ka? Ano nga ba yung maaari mong gamitin para mas matututo ka sa mga bagay-bagay? Then we have here the second domain, motivational and effective factors. When we say motivational factors, these concerns on how learners push themselves to learn and how they value learning. Ano yung mga ginagawa ng mga learners para mas ganahan silang matuto or para magpatuloy sila. Affective factors relate more on the attitudes and feelings and emotions of the learnings. Are they motivated or are they not? Are they happy to learn something or are they not? So those aspects also influence the learning of our students. Now let's begin. We have here the seventh learning principle. Motivational and emotional influences on learning. Anong ibig sabihin nito? The rich internal worlds of thoughts, beliefs, and goals and expectations for success or failure can enhance or interfere with the learner's quality of thinking and information processes. So, anong gusto niyang sabihin? Okay? If students are motivated, the higher the learning is. If students wanted to learn it, mas madali silang matututo. But if students are not motivated, mas prone sila sa failure. Okay? So when we say motivation, it plays an important role in the learning. Your inner drive, kung ano yung nagpapagana sa'yo para ma-learn, para magpatuloy ka. to do something, to pursue something, to have a goal. That one is what we call your motivation. And your motivation to learn is influenced by your individual states. Kung happy ka, you are highly motivated. Kung sad ka, sometimes you are not motivated. Your belief. If you believe that education is the key to success, mas motivated ka to learn something. Interest. If gusto mo yung topic, mas motivated ka. So, if you are highly motivated, the higher the learning is. Okay? The level of one's motivation would determine the extent of learners' ability to construct something. Hence, the higher the motivation, the higher the engagement. The lower the motivation, the lower the engagement. Diba? Kung ganahan ka, mas high ang imuhang participation. Pero kung dili ka ganahan, dili ka interested po. Okay, so what's the role of parents and teachers? So they need to encourage and praise the student. That's why there are rewards given by the parents. If you will get perfect score, the parents will give you something. And make sure that the learning materials used will not trigger students' anxiety, but it will help them love the learning process. 8. Intrinsic motivation to learn. When we say intrinsic motivation, it is your inner goal. It's your inner desire. So, it means that you should have the desire for yourself. Dapat gusto mo talaga yan. So, learners' creativity, higher order thinking, and natural curiosity all contributes to motivation. There are two kinds of motivation, intrinsic and extrinsic. Sabi nila, mas maganda yung mas maganda yung output ng learner if it is intrinsic. Kasi sila mismo yun eh. They are motivated by themselves. Personally gratifying. You are here in the College of Education, it's because you wanted to be you wanted to become teacher yourself. So mas uh you don't expect anything kasi ikaw mismo yun eh. You don't expect any rewards, any tangible rewards kasi that's internal. Gusto mo talaga yun. Pero if it is intrinsic, you wait for external rewards. Dapat there should be this para gawin mo to. There should be plus points so that you will attend the makeup class and so on. And according to this principle, students needed more of intrinsic motivation. Dapat personal motivation rather than outside or external motivation. 9. Ano yung effect ng motivation sa effort? Si effort is a major indication of motivation. So, if you are motivated, highly motivated, of course, mas higher yung effort na ibibigay mo. Kung gusto mo talaga tong bagay na to, mas pagtutuunan mo siya ng pansin. You will give more time to learn that. So, learner's motivation is partnered by extended efforts. So, the higher the motivation, the higher the effort. The lower the motivation, the lower the effort. So, anong gagawin mo sa teacher? Give encouragement to your students. Praise them. Di ka naman mawawala ng trabaho kung bibigyan mo sila ng good job, great work, very good. So praise them so that they will feel rewarded. They will feel more motivated to exert more. Kasi nga, anong mangyayari? Kasi nga, they are appreciated. And positive emotions established in class as we as well as with others make learning interesting for everybody. So dapat there should be positive emotions in class. Students must feel that they are part of the group. Students must feel that they can rely to anybody, the teacher, the classmates. Okay, they are accepted, and as much as possible, learning environment can foster positive emotion if there is no competition. Do not did not inculcate too much sense of competition inside the classroom, but it must be helping hand. Students must learn to help each other and not to compete with each other. Uh, Numeric grades are just secondary. Grades must be second, but the motivation here, or the goal here, is to really learn something. Okay? Unsaon ta man ang dagko ka grado pero wa ka natun-an. Mas maayo pag gamay lagi imong grado pero sure ka na kay natun-an. So again, those are the principles for the motivation and affective factors. 7, motivational and emotional factors influences the learning. The higher the motivation, the higher the learning. Okay, the better the learning. Next, we have year 7, 8 rather, intrinsic motivation to learn. You must encourage your students to be motivated by themselves, not on other factors, not on external factors. The motivation must be coming from them. 9, effects on motivation and efforts. The higher the motivation, the higher the effort. Mas mag-exert ka og effort kung motivated ka. Pero kung dili ka motivated, dili kayo tsanay mong effort. And we have here, that's it. And that's all for the first module. Learning principles associated to cognitive, metacognitive, motivational, and affective factors.